Tutti. I'm very happy to be here at NG-Rome. I will talk about 5 tips to know before building a design system. I work in 3 design systems myself in these years, 1 as a main contributor, 2 as a partial one. And I want to share with all of you my insights on those takes. But first of all, I want to clarify something. A design system, it's not just a component library. It's much more. It's also a set of tokens like colors, typography, guidance, best practices. And with that take, I go for my first tip that will be focused on reusability. And the advice is don't reinvent the wheel, in this case the design system, because you might not need it. What you can see here in the screen is 2 products from my company. One is for data visualization, and the other one is for workflow creation. They have the same look and feel because they are sharing the design system. So if you're interested in that, a design system is the good tool for you. Also for scalability, imagine you have 3 apps in the going that take more or less the same time to develop. If you have a design system, yes, you might take more time to build the first application, but in the long term, you are winning and will ship everything faster. So overall, you might not need actually a design system if you are a small company that just has 1 single product. I've been there actually in my first company that we built a design system, and it was in the end an overhead that we could have avoided. So better to ship things right away when there's no a lot of resources to spend. You can use instead existing design systems. You can also build your design system on top of an existing design system. Or you can use a workshop to build your playground and documentation of your design system. Christopher will talk later on about Storybook. Lots of hype with Christopher talk. And well, my second advice is about scalability, and it's minimize the impact of breaking changes. So my advice is that you should not explore more customizations than what you actually need. I know that it's very tempted that when you do a new component, you might want to look as fancy as possible, but stay away, look in the long term, because everything you add can be a burden later on for maintenance. So if no one asks for it, don't do it. Also, maybe it's 1 person only asks for something, so you should also learn to say no and think on the big picture. So for example, in here, like, do we want a component card that is the fastest possible, or we just want something that is widely used for everyone? In that case, the fastest car also have some downsides. So be in mind that it's not just the time it needs for you to develop that feature now, it's also in the long term, the maintenance costs. And since avoiding breaking changes is impossible, our product manager friends know that, I would deprecate before removing. At least you gain the trust of your users. Or offer migrations. There are 2 types of migrations. Internal, this will be that you keep a versioning of the objects that are being sent to your components. You migrate them and you send it back to them. So the users doesn't need to do much. We are doing this at our company. So far it's working well. And we are also doing external migrations with code mods. JS Code Chief is a nice library to do that easily. So for example, imagine you add a new prop in your component and everyone needs to adapt to it. With the code mods, they will run this script in their end, and they will be able to apply the breaking changes easily. My third advice is about compatibility. Use standards, any standard. For example, web components. In Angular, we are glad to have the Angular elements that allowed you to map to web components as well. Also, Markdown is another tool I would use for small documentation like changelog, setting, getting started, why you should be moving your documentation in a random UI wiki that then you cannot export it. When you have Markdown, that you can keep it in the same repo that you're working on, and you have the history of it. My fourth advice actually is about documentation, and I know I'm seeing some faces. I see that most of people hate to document things, but you need to do it, no? You need to be able to extract things at high level and low level sometimes, be able to explain in each situation. At my company, we have a role that is the information developer. He's not the one to do all the documentation, but he's the owner of it. So he is specialized in making complex stuff more simple for the users to understand, and it's able to adapt to a different public, being like the developers itself, or a more general public, like it will be the stakeholders. And my final take, and I believe the most important one, is adoption, because you cannot have a design system without adoption. It will be useless. And the best thing that you can do is be aware of what is available, because in a big company, when there are multiple teams, there are a team that does something and the other team doesn't know, and they do exactly the same. So communicate and avoid having a silo design system team that works on the design system and doesn't talk to anybody, doesn't accept new ideas. Have some kind of platform for everyone to share these ideas. Like it can be a template from Jira, doesn't need to be anything fancy. And also open it to contributions from outside the design system team, considering open source. And these contributions, I strongly advise to use RFCs, which stands for Request for Comments, and they are based on, first, you propose something, like this example, you want a car that you want to replace the roof for a sunroof so you can save electricity. So you discuss with the design system team if that makes sense or not, how you will implement it. Here's some why Luciano appears thinking maybe it's not so simple at all. So in the end, you iterate over the first solution until you reach a final agreement, and you can start the development with the clear mind that everything you're doing is fine and won't be rejected. So overall, RFCs have the benefits of informing everyone beforehand. You avoid the friction in the development, and is actually a documentation tool for the decision making that has been done on the past. That's overall my main tips: reusability, scalability, compatibility, documentation, and adoption. So thank you very much for listening.